In this video we're going to take all of the components from our flat pack coffee table and put them together in an assembly. So let's go to our folder and open up our project. So previously we've had two design studios, two part studios, where we've made the major components and then we've made the fasteners. What we're going to do now is we're going to create a sub-assembly of one of the legs, and then we're going to use that sub-assembly to create a full assembly of the completed coffee table. So I'm going to click on the assembly tab, which is there, and I'm just going to rename that. So it is leg sub assembly, just to remind us of what we're doing. So in an assembly, you'll see that the tools across the top are slightly different. These are methods in which we can fasten the different components together, and we have an option to insert components. So if I click on insert, you'll see that it shows the coffee tables, shows the coffee table part studios. It is possible to insert components from other part studios from other projects, but we don't need to worry about that at the moment. To start with, we just want to insert one of the legs, so I'm going to expand the components part studio, and then I'm going to click on the leg, and I can bring that in wherever I like onto the screen. But if instead of clicking in the screen I just click on the tick, it actually positions that part how it was drawn in relation to the origin in the original file. Now I can still move that around. So when creating an assembly, you normally want to start with a component that's going to be fixed. It's not going to be moving in that assembly. It's not part of a mechanism. And you then want to fix it in place. So I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to choose fix. So that part now I cannot drag around at all, and you can actually see if I try to, a little symbol appears on it to show that it is fixed. I now want to insert three more components. I want to insert the screw, I want to insert the bracket, and I want to insert the stud. So let's do that. So I'm going to go back to insert, and I'm going to go this time to the fasteners, and I could insert them all as one go, but actually I'm just going to bring them in separately. So I'm going to click on the bracket and bring a bracket in. I'm going to click on a screw and bring a screw in, and I'm going to click on a stud and bring the stud in. Now I'm actually going to need a second screw, so let's bring a second screw in as well, and we can actually have that in place ready to go. Okay, so I'm happy with the components that I brought in. Let's put the stud in first of all, because that's nice and easy, and we can do that from the view orientation that we're in. So I'm just going to zoom in slightly using the scroll wheel, and I'm going to drag the stud up nearer to where it would be needed. I'm now going to use the fixed mate connector. So this is the fasten mate, and it means that whatever's fixed in cannot move. There are some that allow for rotation, some that allow for sliding, some that allow for a sort of a spherical movement, but we want this one to be fixed, so we're going to use the fastened mate. So if I click on there and I then hover over a component, you'll see that it picks up mate connectors. These are points whereby it will automatically think you're trying to mate something, and you can also add your own in if you want to by using the insert mate connector. I'm just going to zoom in slightly, and it would make sense for us to use this mate connector here. So this is lining up with the top of the hole in the center of the leg. So I'm going to click on that, and that will line that up. I'm now going to do the same on the bottom, and if I click on there, you'll see that it lines our stud up. So the center of that is lined up with the center of that, and the two faces are mated together as well. Now this needs to actually go in here halfway. It needs to go in 40 millimeters. So I'm just going to use the offset tool, and you can see that it shows X, Y and Z, and on here there's a drawing of X, Y and Z. So X is red, Y is green and Z is blue. So I want to set an offset in Z, so that's going to be blue of 40 millimeters. So I'm going to hit 40 and hit enter, and you can see it's gone the right direction. If it didn't go in the right direction, I could use the minus sign in front of it to put it in the right direction, but I'm now happy with that, so I can click on there to solve it. So now it's ready for another fastened mate, which is actually what I want. So I don't need to come out of that. I can just go around. Now I'm going to spin this round by holding down the right mouse button, and I want to put my bracket lined up with that hole. So the first thing I'm going to do is drag the bracket over so it's nearby, and move it around and drag it so it's nearby. Now the bracket is actually upside down, so I can select it and I can spin it around. So if I right click on it, it wants to put a mate, so I'm going to have to cancel that. So I'm going to bring that over, so I can just drag it around the work area, and then I can click on it, and you can see that I've got these tools. Now I can use the arrows to move something up and down, and I can use the rotation parts to rotate the part around. So I want to turn this around 180 degrees, so I can get it approximate, and then I can type the number in. 180 is right, so I'll click enter and then click. So we've changed that 180 degrees, and now we can use mate fasteners on this to do a fixed mate. I'm just going to bring the screws over. I'm ready for the next step. I'm going to get these in position as well. So I'm going to click on this one, and I want that one to move through 90 degrees. And I'm going to click on this one, and I want this one to move through 180 degrees because it's going to go upwards. And again, if I want to, I could type a number in there. So if I wanted it 123 degrees, I could type 123, 180, hit enter, click away. So these three parts are in an orientation now that are ready to be assembled. So I'm just going to zoom in slightly to make things a little bit clearer for you. So fastened mate, I'm going to click on the edge of that hole, and then I'm going to turn it round holding the right mouse button down and do the same on there. Spin that back round, and the holes line up with each other and the surfaces are lined up with each other, which is what we'd expect. So I'm going to click the tick to say that I'm happy with it. Next, I'm going to do the vertical screw. So I'm going to zoom in, and if I pick up this surface, you'll see that it picks up the mate connector in the center of that surface, which is what I want. So I'm just going to click to select it, use the mouse wheel to scroll out, spin round, and then I'm going to do the same on that surface there. So I'm just going to click, and that's put the screw in, and you can see at the moment the screw is just sticking up through the bracket. And then I'm going to do the same with this part. Select the mate selector in the middle of that surface, zoom out and spin it around, and the mate connector there, click, and we've got that in. So there's our screws holding the bracket to the leg. So I can now close that because I'm not going to do another one. I can right click and go zoom to fit, and I can right click and go isometric, which then hides that. So that's my leg sub assembly, and I will use 4 of those in the main assembly. So let's create the main assembly now. Click on the plus sign to the left of our tabs, and I can create another assembly. So create on that assembly, and at the moment we have an empty assembly as we'd expect. Let's right click on that, and let's rename that full assembly. So to insert parts, remember we go to the insert, and this time I'm going to insert the components in first. So the first part I'm going to insert is the tabletop. So I'm going to click on the tabletop. Remember, I can move it around if I want to, but actually if I just go up and click on the tick, it lines that up with the origin. And remember, I need to fix this in place as well. So right click and select fix. So you'll see that when we drew that initially, if you can remember back to that video, we did a center rectangle from the origin on the top plane, and that's lined up there as well. Okay, let's bring in our sub-assemblies now. So if we go insert, Instead of being in Part Studios, if we click on Assemblies, we can see that we've got the leg assembly. So let's bring in a leg assembly and bring in 1, bring in 2, bring in 3, and bring in 4. So let's tick that to say that we're happy. Okay, so with the leg assembly, it would make sense before we start putting things together to orientate them in the direction that we want. Now these two are okay. If I spin that around, we can see that the brackets are in the right direction. What we need to do is to change these. So click on it, rotate that round 180 degrees. I've gone a bit far, type in 180, hit enter, click out the way. Do the same on this one, select it, spin it round 180 degrees or thereabouts, type in the actual number we want, click away, so that's done. So these parts now are all in place, ready to be assembled. Now we don't need to worry about mating it with the studs now. We can simply select the surface here, the mate connector that will appear by that hole, and do the same on the top of each leg, and they'll be already orientated in the right direction. So let's do that 4 times. So I'm just going to zoom in, pick that mate connector, zoom out, do the same on that leg, and it's left the stud behind. That's okay, it's just doing a preview. When we click on the tick, the stud will follow it, so it leaves it behind so that we can just do that. Okay, let's do the same on the next one. So let's pick up the mate connector, move it around holding the mouse button down, click on there. We can zoom to see if it's right. It is. Click on the tick and then the stud will go in. Okay, let's do this the other way around, shall we? Let's click on the mate connector on the leg, spin it around, click on the mate connector on the table, click the tick to say we're happy, and since we're looking at the bottom of the table, pick the mate connector there, spin it around, use the scroll wheel to go to where we want, select the connector, and there's our table with those 4 legs selected. Okay, let's close that. Let's now add in our final part. So insert, Part Studio, components, let's expand that, and we want to bring in the shelf. So let's select that, click OK. Now the shelf is actually in the correct place. If we look at that, it's already where we want it to be. So we could just right click on it and fix it, and it would be in the right place for our assembly. Quite easy to do that, but let's do it properly. So let's use an offset mate again. So let's do a fasten mate. Let's pick the mate connector in the middle of the shelf and the mate connector that's on the origin in the middle of the table, and it will put the 2 together. Let's put an offset in there, and again, if we look, we want to offset in the Z direction, and we know that the distance is actually 190 millimeters from what we did before. Hit enter. Oh look, it's gone in the wrong direction. Let's change that to a minus. Hit enter. It's gone down to the right position, and we can just zoom in and check that that is correct, which it is. So let's click on the tick, and we don't need any more. So we now right click, go to isometric, and there's our assembled coffee table.